Hi students, welcome to the first lesson of Indian society. In today's presentation we will be talking about textual perspective or Indological perspective of study of Indian society with specific reference to contributions by Manu Dumont and Ghurye. A perspective is a way in which social facts, social phenomenon or social behaviors etc. is viewed. When a group of scholars come to share a particular view, point towards the study of socio-cultural and other aspects of human life, a particular sociological approach emerges. Such an approach is accompanied by appropriate concepts, theory or theories, methods and techniques for studying society. Indian society is studied through various perspectives like Indological, which is also called as textual perspective, structural functional perspective, Marxist perspective, civilization and subaltern perspectives. Indology is the branch dealing with interpretation of ancient texts and linguistic studies of ancient Indian culture. Indological approach refers to the historical and comparative method based on Indian texts in the study of Indian society. Therefore, Indologists use ancient history, epics, religious manuscripts and texts etc. in the study of Indian social institutions. As part of this presentation, we will be focusing on understanding Indological or textual perspective of study of Indian society, and we will try to understand what are the viewpoints of Manu, Govind Sadashiv Ghurye and Louis Dumont in this context. Indian society is unique in structure, function and dynamics and cannot be associated with European society. Indology relies on book view and culture and denounces rigorous empirical investigation. Indology is both an approach to study the Indian society and also an independent discipline with Indian society as subject matter. In both the forms, Indology consists of studying language, beliefs, ideas, customs, taboos, codes, institutions, rituals, ceremonies and other related components of culture. Indology demands interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary approach. Indology is basically the use of ancient texts and scriptures of India by sociologists to understand the social and cultural life in India. Indology is known as the science of Indian society. The Indological perspective claims to understand Indian society through the concepts, theories and frameworks that are closely associated with Indian civilization. Indology is also older than sociology. It is antique in its origin owing to the fact that Sir William Jones in 1784 established Asiatic Society. One of the main tasks of society was publication of a journal devoted to anthropological and Indological interests such as study of Sanskrit, comparative jurisprudence, comparative mythology, etc. It is the beginning of Indology in India, which has been followed by several other scholars like Henry Maine, Max Muller and Alfred Leletic. They have contributed tremendously for the development of the society, and from their contribution there was the evolving of Indological perspective. All of them have based their studies on rich cultural tradition of India and the principle that govern India and outlaws of Hindu. Therefore, they were also called as Indologists. The Indological approach rested on the assumption that historically Indian society and culture are unique and that this contextual specificity of Indian social realities could be grasped better through the text. The text basically included the classical ancient literature of ancient Indian society such as Vedas, Puranas, Manusmriti, Ramayana, Mahabharata and others. Indologists analyze social phenomena by interpreting the classical texts. Apart from Sanskrit scholars and Indologists, many sociologists have also used extensively traditional texts to study Indian society. Therefore, it is called as textual view or textual perspective of social phenomena as it depends upon texts. When field studies in many years of their interest in India became difficult, textual analysis either of classics or ethics or field notes from an earlier data represented a fruitful basis for continued analysis of Indian structure and tradition in 1970s and 1980s. An Indological and culturological approach has also been hallmark of several sociologists. For instance, R.N. Saxena agrees with this Indological or scriptural basis of studying Indian society. He stressed on the role of the concepts of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. In fact, Dumont and Pocock emphasize the utility of Indological formulations. They observe, in principle, a sociology of India lies at the point of confluence of sociology and Indology. Indology is representative of people's behavior or that guides people's behavior in a significant way. The use of Indological approach during early formative years of Indian sociology and social anthropology is seen in the works of S.V. Ketkar, B.N. Seal and B.K. Sarkar. G.S. Ghurye, Louis Dumont, K.M. Kapadia, P.H. Prabhu and Iravati Karve, who have tried to explore Hindu social institutions and practices either with reference to religious texts or through the analysis of contemporary practices. In the following sections, the viewpoints of Manu, Govind Sadashiv Ghurye and Louis Dumont are discussed. Manu is found as early as Rigveda, where he is pronounced as Father Manu, ancestor of the human race. In Satapatha Brahmana of around 900 BC, Manu is evidently the father of mankind when he follows the advice of a fish and builds a ship in which he alone among men survives the great flood. Afterwards, he worships and performs penance, and a woman Ida or Ila is produced and he starts mankind with her. Manu was also the first king and the first to spark the sacrificial fire. As the inventor of social and moral order, he is the Rishi who discloses the most authoritative of Dharma Shastras. Manu's text, the Manu Smriti or Manav Dharma Shastra, is the earliest of Dharma Shastras. Its date is unclear, being somewhere between 200 BCE and 100 CE. It probably reached its present form around the 2nd century CE. Manusmriti, also called Manav Dharma Shastra, traditionally is the most authoritative of the books of Hindu code or Dharma Shastras in India. Manusmriti prescribes to Hindus their dharma, that is, set of obligations incumbent on each as a member of one of the 4 social classes which he calls as varnas, and engaged in one of the 4 stages of life which is ashramas. Manusmriti contains 12 chapters of stanzas which total to about 2694. It deals with cosmogony, the definition of dharma, the sacraments, initiation which is Upnayana, and the study of Vedas which is sacred texts of Hinduism, marriage, hospitality, funeral rites, dietary restrictions, pollution and means of purification, the conduct of women and wives and the law of kings. The last leads to a consideration of matters of juridical interest divided under 18 headings, after which the text returns to religious topics such as charity, rights of reparation, the doctrine of karma, the soul and the hell. The text makes no categorical distinction between religious law and practices and secular law. Its influence on all aspects of Hindu thought, particularly the justification of the caste system, has been profound. Let us now discuss what Manu speaks about caste and Varna. Manu took inspiration from Vedas and proposed a social system based on qualities, actions and nature of the individual. This is called Varna system. Now, the very word Varna derived from the root word Vrinja means choice. A similar usage happens in common used word Varan meaning choosing or Var meaning a husband chosen by the girl. This also shows that in Vedic system, the girl had complete rights to choose her husband. The biggest proof of Manusmriti proposing Varna system and not caste system is that in the first chapter of Manusmriti, there is mention of origin of 4 Varnas and no mention of castes or Gotras. Manusmriti states that one earns respect due to wealth, company, age, actions and knowledge in increasing order. There is no mention of family, gotra, caste, lineage and other non-factors to demand or earn respect. Manu himself announces in Manusmriti that Vedas alone form the foundation of dharma. Shudras have right to study Vedas and conduct Vedic rituals. Vedas very clearly provide right to Shudras and women, in fact entire humanity, to study Vedas and conduct Vedic rituals like Yagyas. Thus, Manusmriti also supports the same Vedic truth. That is why nowhere in the context of Upanayana, which is the education initiation, Manu forbids Upanayana or sacred thread for Shudras. Manu also elaborates on Rinas. He deals with all the aspects of human life and comes out with a comprehensive set of duties regulating one's conduct towards oneself, towards the society, towards other creatures, towards the universe as a whole. Hence, it is very difficult to define Manu's view of morality until we see what it means to him in individual, social, practical and spiritual spheres of human life. Manu highlights the concept of Rina, which means indebtedness, and every individual is born with 3 kinds of primary Rina. The first to gods, which has to be fulfilled by sacrificial offering to gods. The second is towards ancient sages, which has to be discharged by studying the Vedas, the repositories of ancient wisdom and cultural heritage. The third Rina is towards one's ancestors, which has to be observed by marrying and begetting children to continue the lineage. Manu also elaborates on ashrama system. Manu divides the life into 4 successive orders or stages called ashrama and preaches definite rules to follow in each stage to make the whole life morally commendable. The first stage is of religious studentship, brahmacharya ashrama. The second is of a householder, which is grihastha ashrama. The third is of a hermit, which is Vanaprastha ashrama, and the final stage is of a religious mendicant, bhikshu or sannyasi called as sannyas ashrama. One who has undergone these four stages as Vedas and law prescribe will be exalted to the highest bliss. The first ashrama of brahmacharya begins with the child going to learned preceptor, acharya or acquisition of knowledge in Vedas and its angas. Acharya is considered the spiritual father of the student. The student has to observe rigorously the rules of conduct and live a Puritan life. He has to go around the village for receiving alms and collect food for himself and his preceptor and also fuel for the sacred fire. The student, after completing his Vedic education at his preceptor's place, will be relieved after he offers Guru Dakshina to his preceptor. Thus, he discharges his duty towards ancient stages by studying the Veda and repeating it. The student, after completion of education, returns home. He then enters Grihast ashrama or the stage of a householder by marrying. Manu offers certain guidelines to choose a bride. Manu offers 8 forms of marriage and prescribes definite forms for each varna. Grihastha ashrama is the most important stage in life. Manu enjoins a number of daily domestic religious duties to householders which are dealt in detail by Grihasutras. Grihastha ashrama gives ample scope for the pursuit of purusharthas or ends of life. A householder has to pursue a holy life with the help of his partner. Manu emphasizes mutual trust and love between a man and his wife. Social prosperity depends on healthy family relations, for family is the primary unit of social nexus. The next stage in life is that of an anchorite or vanaprasthi, in which one has to retire to a forest after duly fulfilling the 3 rinas and discharging all other duties towards the family. Manu says that one has to take up vanaprastha when one sees one's hair turning grey or as soon as one begets a grandchild. In this ashrama too, one has to fulfill the prescribed religious duties. This is a preparatory stage for the final ashrama. In this stage, one has to practice restraint over one's sense organs and keep one's mind in control. The fourth and final stage, that is sannyas ashrama of an Aryan's life, involves renouncing the world, suppression of passions and wandering about as a bhikshu or parivrajaka. Renouncing the world does not mean that one has no obligation towards society. Indeed, this is the stage in which one can devote oneself towards the welfare of society. The stage is not free from social duties. A bhikshu or mendicant still depends on the society for his bare maintenance and in turn serves the society by going around enlightening people, showing the path of welfare and liberation. Manu elaborates with regard to law and justice. Manu uses the word dharma to mean not only individual and social duties, but also to mean law and justice. Dharma as justice is higher than king and the state. The king has to be impartial in administration of law and justice, and he himself is bound by them. The king has to punish every offender, whether the offender is his father, mother, wife, son, teacher, priest or a friend. The interesting feature of Manu's justice is that the social hierarchy of classes has its influence on the administration of justice. K.S. Padhi, in one of his beautiful writings in 2011, says that Manu in his valuable work has elaborated on the following aspects like origin of universe and rules for the rituals, keeping promises and attending the teacher, kinds of marriages, regulation for great sacrifices and obligatory rule for the ceremonies for the dead and for questioning witnesses, various means of livelihood, vows of the Vedic graduate, kinds of food to be eaten, purification and cleansing of impurities. Manu also has contributed in terms of duties of a woman, of a king, of a husband and wife, heretics. He also speaks about freedom and renunciation, partition of property, gambling and cleaning out thorns. Manu elaborates on attendance by commoners and servants and origin of confused classes. He elaborates on religious duties of all classes in extremity and rules for restorations. The threefold course for transmigration that arises from the effect of past actions also has been discussed by Manu. Manu elaborates on supreme good and examination of the virtues and vices of effect of past actions, as well as the obligatory duties of countries, castes and families. Now let us discuss about the contributions of Govind Sadashiv Ghurye, who is a very towering figure in intellectual and academic circles for his unique contribution in the field of Indian sociology. He has often been acclaimed as father of Indian sociology, the doyen of Indian sociologists, or the symbol of sociological creativeness. Ghurye had been engaged in building up almost single-handedly the entire first generation of Indian sociologies in post-independent period. Ghurye's contribution to the development of sociology and anthropology in India is enormous and multifaceted. Ghurye was initially influenced by the reality of diffusion approach of British social anthropology, but subsequently he switched on to the studies of Indian society from Indological and anthropological perspective. He emphasized on ideological approach in the study of social and cultural life in India and elsewhere. His writings have been gathered from all sources: literary, historical, archaeological, sculptural, painting and iconography. This gives an extra dimension to his research. Several authors have divided Ghurye's writings into 6 broad areas. These are caste, tribes, kinship, family and marriage, culture and civilization, and the historical role of cities, along with religion, sociology of conflict and integration. Some of the important works of Ghurye are Caste and Race in India in 1932, and it was edited again in 1969, Culture and Society in 1947, Indian Sadhus in 1953, Bharatanatyam and its costumes in 1958, Family and Kin in Indo-European Culture in 1955-1961, Gods and Men in 1962, Anatomy of Rural-Urban Community in 1962. Ghurye explains caste in India on the basis of 6 distinctive characteristics. He talks about segmental division of society, hierarchy, thirdly civil and religious disabilities and privileges, fourthly lack of unrestricted choice of occupation, fifthly restriction on food, drinks and social intercourse, and lastly endogamy. According to Ghurye, caste is also linked with kinship through caste endogamy and also Gotra exogamy. To Ghurye, there are three types of marriage restrictions in our Indian society which shape the relationship between caste and kinship. These are endogamy, exogamy and hypergamy. Exogamy can be divided into two parts, sapinda or prohibited degrees of kin and Gotra exogamy. Ghurye has also written extensively on tribes. His works on tribes were general as well as specific. He wrote a general book on scheduled tribes in which he dealt with historical, administrative and social dimensions of Indian tribes. He also wrote on specific tribes such as the Kolis in Maharashtra with the title The Mahadev Kolis in the year 1957. There has been fierce debate between G.S. Ghurye and Verrier Elwin. Elwin in his book Loss of Nerve said that tribals should be allowed to live in isolation, whereas Ghurye argued that tribals should be assimilated into Hindu castes. Ghurye, while elaborating on culture and civilization, says that culture constitutes the central or core element for understanding society and its evolution. In fact, culture is a totality involving the entire heritage of mankind. Ghurye's abiding interest was to analyze the course of cultural evolution and the nature of heritage which mankind has denied from the past. There are three books of Ghurye known as his trilogy in this field: Social Tensions in India in 1968, Wither India in 1974 and India Recreates Democracy in 1978. In these books, he has developed a theoretical framework to explain unity at the social or cultural level. Ghurye holds that though groups play an integrational role in society, this is true only up to a certain extent. Ghurye has discussed extensively about rurbanization. Ghurye remained occupied all through his life with the idea of rurbanization securing the advantages of urban life simultaneously with nature's greenery. Therefore, he discusses the process of rural urbanization in India. Ghurye's approach to rural urbanization reflects the indigenous source of urbanism. During colonial times, the growth of metropolitan centers altered in Indian life. The town and cities were no longer the outlets for agricultural produce and handicrafts, but they became the major manufacturing centers. These centers used rural areas for producing raw materials and turned into a market for selling industrial products. Thus, the metropolitan economy emerged to dominate the village economy. According to Ghurye, an urban planner must tackle the problems of firstly, sufficient supply of drinking water, secondly, human congestion, thirdly, traffic congestion, fourthly, regulation of public vehicles, fifthly, insufficiency of railway transport in cities like Mumbai, sixthly, erosion of trees, seventhly, sound pollution, eighthly, indiscriminate tree felling, and ninthly, the plight of the pedestrians. About religion, Ghurye thinks that religion is the center of the total cultural heritage of man. Ghurye made original contribution to the study of Indian religious beliefs and practices. He wrote 6 books to bring out the role of religion in society. These are Indian Sadhus, Gods and Men, Religious Consciousness, Indian Accumulation, Vedic India and The Legacy of Ramayana. All these works reflect Ghurye's interest related to sociology of religion. For example, in Gods and Men, Ghurye discusses the nature of Hindu ideas of Godhead and the relations, if any. Religious consciousness, Ghurye analyzes three oldest human civilizations, Mesopotamian, Egyptian and the Hindu, in their various aspects of mythological beliefs, speculation, etc., and in the Indian sadhus. Ghurye considers the genesis, development and organization of asceticism in Hindu religion and the role ascetics have played in the maintenance of Hindu society. Ghurye gives great importance to the role of language in the process of nation building in India. Ghurye holds the view that regional language has a symbolic integration value of the region. The regional languages ensure the unity of territory at the local level. The task of sociologists, according to Ghurye, is to explore the social history of past. He says, one cannot understand the present without the reference of the past. Ghurye introduced a down-to-earth empiricism in Indian sociology and social anthropology. He was an ethnographer who studied tribes and castes of India using historical and Indological data. His knowledge of Sanskrit enabled him to study the religious scriptures in the context of Indian society. He encouraged and trained a large number of talented students who in turn advanced the frontiers of sociological and anthropological research in the country. With his own voluminous output and through the researches of his able students, Ghurye embarked on ambitious project of mapping out the ethnographic landscape of India. Now let us discuss about the contributions of Louis Dumont, who was a French sociologist and is regarded as an Indologist. Dumont used ethnographic detail in his study and applied holistic approach. Under the observation of Marcel Mauss, sociologist and Sanskritist, Dumont began his academic career. Dumont also studied Sanskrit and spent 1 year in Tamil Nadu learning about a subcaste called Pramalai Kallar, a caste of Kallar community which was responsible for a village. He spent few years in India going around and gathering knowledge from different parts of India. He visited Tamil Nadu and Gorakhpur. His main focus studies were on Hinduism, kinship and caste in ancient India and socio-political movements of modern India. He also succeeded M.N. Srinivas as a lecturer in Oxford University in the field of Indian sociology. According to Dumont, the presence of caste was a token of the cultural unity and distinctiveness of India, as he has described in his famous writing Homo Hierarchicus, the caste system and its implications. Dumont said that the sociology of India must lie at the confluence of sociology and Indology. The famous writings of Dumont, as stated at the outset, his main areas of interest are social anthropology and Indology. He has written on wide range of subjects such as Hinduism, caste kinship, social and political movements in India. His major works were basically in French, which were translated, which includes La Tarascou, One Sos Cas Indidusad, Organisation Sociale et Religion des, Homo Hierarchus, the caste system and its implications, Religion, Politics and History in India, collected papers in Indian sociology, as well as Homo Equilis. Major contribution of Louis Dumont in understanding Indian society include methodological perspective, caste system and its implications, pure and impure, Varna system, history, politics and religion in India. Dumont in his explanation of caste also speaks about concept of pure and impure. To understand the meaning of pure and impure, Dumont had dealt with two basic questions. Those are, why is the distinction applied to hereditary groups? Secondly, if it accounts for the contrast between Brahmins and untouchables, can it account equally for the division of society into a large number of groups, themselves sometimes extremely subdivided? Dumont, while discussing about theory of varnas, has viewed that India has the traditional hierarchy of varnas or colors. Throughout this, there is fourfold division of society, such as Brahmins or priests, Kshatriyas or warriors, Vaishyas or the traders or merchants, and the Shudras or the servants. He found that there was no categories below this called to be the untouchables. Now let us summarize this entire lesson on Indological perspective by discussing that a perspective is a way in which social facts, social phenomenon or social behaviors is viewed. Indian society is studied through various perspectives like Indological, structural, functional, Marxist, civilization and subaltern perspectives. Indology is the branch dealing with interpretation of ancient texts and linguistic studies of ancient Indian culture. Indological approach refers to the historical and comparative method based on Indian texts in the study of Indian society. Manusmriti is traditionally the most authoritative of books of Hindu code in India. Manu took inspiration from Vedas and proposed a social system based on qualities, actions and nature of the individual. Manu highlights the concept of Rina, which is the most dominant moral concept of Brahmana part of Vedas. Rina means indebtedness, and every individual is born with three kinds of primary Rina. Manu says that there are four Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, four ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasashrama. G.S. Ghurye has often been acclaimed as father of Indian sociology, the doyen of Indian sociologists, or the symbol of sociological creativeness. According to Ghurye, caste is also linked with kinship through caste endogamy and also Gotra exogamy. The major contribution of Louis Dumont in understanding Indian society includes methodological perspective, caste system and its implications, concept of pure and impure, Varna system, history, politics and religion in India. The Homo hierarchicus, the caste system and its implication is a complete theoretical work that helps us to access the vast body of available ethnographic data on castes.